On June 25th, 2020, a YouTube account by the name of Mishkoz would upload one of the most impactful videos the Super Mario community had ever seen. The Super Mario 64 Iceberg Explained. This video has around 6 million views and it explained the surreal and unsettling facts, rumors, and mysteries of Super Mario 64. Amongst the more normal things about it, it spawned countless, and I mean countless, videos on the topic too. This went on for years, and a YouTuber by the name of Greenlight would upload a video on July 2nd, 2022 that began the mystery of and series of videos called the Power Star Archives. At a glance, we can see that what's being played looks a lot like Super Mario World, which was initially released back in November of 1990. With all of the buzz surrounding the horrors and mysteries of Mario at the time, who knows what this could have been? Was it an unreleased sequel to Super Mario World, or was there much more to it? This is what we'll be looking at in this video. Greenlight has uploaded 9 entries in the Power Star archives, which I'll refer to as tapes, with a few other related videos scattered here and there. I love the darker side, mysteries, and urban legends surrounding the Super Mario franchise. I've made a few videos talking about that kind of stuff, and I've actually been sitting on the idea of looking into the Power Star archives mystery and rabbit hole for a while now, and I know a lot of you have suggested it too, so here it is. You can find my links and relevant links to the Power Star archives and other stuff shown in this video in the description. And without further ado, let's dive into the Power Star archives. We're starting things off at, obviously, Tape 1, welcome back. The description of the tape states the following: Game Power Star Project, Wario Apparition, Corrupted Data. Version 123.38a. Description: one day, Wario becomes possessed by an unknown evildoer who is set to haunt the entirety of the Mushroom Kingdom. Play as Mario, Luigi, or Princess Toadstool and help them save the Mushroom Kingdom in this thrilling adventure. Playable characters: Wario, Mario, Luigi, Princess Toadstool. Date of recording: 01/18/2022. Already, that gives us quite a bit of information. It seems that this game has a clear good vs evil story featuring Mario characters we're all familiar with. So, let's take a look. As we can see, this does look like a sequel to Super Mario World dubbed Power Star Project. A name like that would imply that this game was still in development at the time, seeing as it sounds like a placeholder name. As the game fades to the first level, the purple and yellow on Wario's clothes swap color and he looks a little ominous. This does seem like an unfinished or in development Mario game, so I'm sure that's why, right? The game starts and we see that Wario is our starting playable character, which is odd considering that the description stated that Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Toad were the playable ones, and Wario was the one possessed by an evildoer, so this must be before that happens. As the video continues, we see more of the level, and we really get to see how much inspiration the Power Star project has taken from Super Mario World down to the UI, although this item being held at the top doesn't look recognizable. I wonder what it could be. A health bar? A placeholder item perhaps? Who knows? The classic and very recognizable Super Mario World music and sound effects are here too. Actually, SMBX, a Mario fan game engine written by Andrew Redigit Spinks, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, comes to mind when I look at this. It's highly likely that whoever is developing the Power Star project is using that same game engine, which would make sense considering what we've seen so far. This would also mean that this is a fan game and not an official Nintendo product. But I guess we'll see as we look at more of the tapes. Anyway, Wario also has his recognizable charge, a crawl of sorts, and that star power-up effect is beautiful. It reminds me a lot of the one from Super Mario Galaxy. Anyway, things continue and then our first big oddity occurs. What looks like a black and white version of the modern Fire Flower flies towards Wario, freezes the game and turns everything a dark and sickly hue of red. If you look closely too, we can see that Wario's eyes have been turned into a single eye as well, kind of imitating the flower. That makes me question whether or not this is a flower then.
Welcome back. Oh, fun. I sure will.
Just so you know, I turned the volume down on this section because it made me jump. Anyways, whatever's taken Wario is welcoming whoever is playing the game back, as if this thing is a conscious entity within the game. Wario also does a little flutter run for a few frames, which he never did before this, as we see him charging instead. Maybe that's a sign that he's not him anymore. Wario is painfully taken over by the entity, and he even looks like he's pressing his hands against the screen, crying out for help. His cries are ear-piercing and hard to listen to, honestly, contrasting his jovial and comical self, never pain like this. But there's nothing we or the player could have done here. He was at the mercy of the entity, and its plague has spread across the Mushroom Kingdom, haunting it as the game's description describes. Wario is back to being playable, and the player tries running back to the start of the level, but they're brought back to the bridge. There's no undoing what's been done. I wonder if the player was trying to run away from something they're familiar with or fearful of. Well, there's only one way forward for them, and the player does just that, going through a dark and foreboding version of the level, with eerie and unsettling music accompanying it. The entity even takes control away from the player and moves Wario for them, showing off its sentience once more. The Mushroom Kingdom is truly at a great risk. Notice how Mario, Luigi, and Peach's AIs were downloaded and loaded into the game. Take note that during Peach's download and load, things glitch out briefly. Regardless, the Power Star project title screen has changed to Wario Apparition Corrupted Data. Mario, Luigi, and Peach are presented as characters for the player to choose. They choose Peach, and that's where the first tape ends. A Super Mario World style Mario game project corrupted by a malicious AI is quite the mystery. I wonder how the player we see everything from the perspective of comes into play with all of this too. Are they involved in developing the project, just testing the game, or both? And what about the Wario Apparition? Has the AI created a or the Wario Apparition too? Or did it simply summon what was already there? But before we continue to tape 2, let's do a quick refresher on what the Wario Apparition is. The apparition looks like Wario's disembodied head and is found in Super Mario 64. Its appearance is determined by your copy's personalization AI, and the methods and reason for the apparition's summon are theorized to be from a conscious manifestation by the player to want to see it. Finding the white-eyed chomp in the location of the normal chain chomp is usually a good indicator too. Due to the nature of the personalization AI, the appearance and behavior of the Wario Apparition can vary between player to player too, but what's consistent is its desire to chase down the player, chomping maniacally at them, and sometimes engage in a boss battle of sorts since it's believed it may be the remains of an unused and unfinished boss battle. Coming into contact with it will cause the player to suffer from stroke-like symptoms and memory loss, and it's highly recommended that you turn off your console if you come into contact with it. Or it was just a face-rigged Charles Martinet used in Nintendo's Focus on Fun panel from E3 1996. Nintendo also has other apparitions, and I covered the Wario one in my Mario 64 Iceberg video and the other ones in my Nintendo Apparitions video that I'll have linked in the description, so give those a watch after this video if you want to. Anyway, it's clear that the Wario Apparition has made its way into the Power Star project in one way or another thanks to this flower or eye-shaped entity. If the Wario Apparition appears thanks to a personalization AI in Mario 64, then the same logic would apply here. The entity is that personalization AI, and it's going to bring ruin to the Power Star project by following the game's story description, but going about it in a way that most likely wasn't intended. And that brings us to Tape 2, Game Power Star Project, version 208.2x. Description: one day, Mario suddenly went missing. Play as Toad and help Luigi track him down. Playable characters: Toad. Date of recording: 06/16/2022. This was recorded almost 5 months after the first tape. Mario is missing and the game's version is much further in development, so a lot's happened in those 5 months. The title screen and opening of the game is different from what we've already seen, and this could be explained by the personalization AI or a shift in what the game was going to be. I wonder what the entity has done, because after all, the tape is called A Whole New World. But what of the other character AIs?
Hi there! I've come to deliver some awful news. Mario went missing! You gotta help me find him. What are we waiting for? Let's begin our search.
Already, things are so different. Things kick off with Luigi explaining to us that Mario's missing and the player needs to find them. And that's exactly what we see, but if you noticed, something was a bit off with the transition from Luigi to gameplay. I think it's fair to say that the entity has Luigi in its grasp, so much so that it's asking to make it stop. The player, just as the description states, is playing as Toad 2, and things start off relatively normal minus that Luigi part. Everything looks fine, and we get to see how much the game builds on Super Mario World. As the level continues, however, the cheerful Super Mario World music cuts out and Toad finds Luigi.
Hey! Long time no see. So, have you found Mario? That's unfortunate. No luck on my end as well.
Don't be afraid, I'm not your enemy. Let's make this quick. Now that you're playing this game, there's no turning back for you. Eventually, you'll experience horror far beyond what you can imagine. Unless you do as I say, you're screwed. So if I were you, I'd choose to cooperate.
Well, I'll see you around.
So our player here is asked to cooperate with Luigi, and some of that entity corruption kicks in as well. Well, at least that's what it looks like. Luigi, or something, asks for cooperation to make things easier and to spare the player from a pained resistance. The way it addresses the player would freak anyone out who comes across it, and rightfully so. Games breaking the fourth wall is a delicate art form and procedure in itself. In this context, it confirms to us that there's been some sort of back and forth of interactions between the player, players, or developers and the entity over the almost 5 months since the first tape. Despite that, the entity will indeed be seeing the player around. Tape 3, Burned Memories, gives us an interesting description. Game, Power Star Project, Wario Apparition, Corrupted Data, version 123.38a. Description: one day, Wario becomes possessed by an unknown evildoer who is set to haunt the entirety of the Mushroom Kingdom. Play as Mario, Luigi, or Princess Toadstool and help them save the Mushroom Kingdom in this thrilling adventure. Playable characters: Wario, Mario, Luigi, and Princess Toadstool. Date of recording: January 18th, 2022. This was recorded on the same day Tape 1 was, and it looks to follow up right after it. Peach was highlighted and selected by the player at the end of Tape 1, and with Tape 3, the player is playing as Peach. Our player starts off in what looks to be a rendition of Peach's castle from Mario 64. And the apparition is in the walls, exactly like it would be in Mario 64. This announcement even startles the player, but they continue forward and meet with the possessed Wario. They try to stomp on him, but to no avail. We see that each attempt is met with a save state load. You'd be familiar with save states if you've ever emulated games before. You wouldn't emulate a Nintendo product, would you? Don't you worry, your secret is safe with me. But this does show us that the Power Star project is being played on a computer, which was shown in Tape 1, but I've only decided to talk about it now. Note the state number 2, 0, just like the one-eyed looking entity. I mean, it even represented itself with a 0 closed bracket face in Tape 1. It's another bleak reminder that the entity is in control and it mocks the player by mimicking them and laughing. This is where a boss fight starts and the entity tortures the castle. This causes Peach's hair to change color, which we can assume is because of the lighting change the fire engulfing the room makes, or the ashes and smoke created by the fire. But the only thing that seems to change on Wario is his clothing colors, but that's due to picking up a fire flower. I thought it could be in Tape 1, but this diamond-shaped thing at the top of the screen is a health bar as we see the player take damage and a heart disappears. So it looks like the character's health bar is more like how it is in Super Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, etc. But in the 200 version of the game in Tape 2, 5 months into the future, the usual health system that the side-scroller 2D Mario games have is used. However, those games don't usually put a health indicator up, you just see it visually by how your character looks. Anyway, with everything that we've seen, guess how this boss fight ends? Despite losing, Peach respawns with her brown hair and it looks like she attempts to talk to the player. What she says is just gibberish, but she continues to get their attention by looking at them when standing still or moving at a slow speed. Even the player seems confused by it and they get sent into the castle's basement. Peach gives us more gibberish and then we get a stealth section. Seeing as the Wario Apparition is famously found in the basement of Peach's castle, having it appear down here floating and chomping around to find the player only makes sense, and imagine how powerless you'd be in a situation like this. You have no choice but to try and keep the character you're playing as alive. If you turn the game off or computer, you risk angering the entity. There's even a risk for some of the characters because their AIs here are sentient. The entity and Peach definitely are, but the other characters are up for debate. With Peach even being able to talk to the player now, stating, "Hello, do you know who I am?" And something responds back with, "I don't." The player wasn't prompted to type anything, and it doesn't look like there's a voice command prompt either, so was it the entity?
I get it now. I've been vulnerable many times before, but now it can't even touch me. Do you think I could be the true deity of this world? Do you think I should be in charge of all the torture now? After all, I am invincible. I can become whatever I want. I am goddess now. Be not afraid. I'm not your enemy. Help me overthrow the false god. It's afraid of me. I sense it. Do as I say. Always. Andrew. That's your name, right? The false god cannot know that you know. Andrew.
Peach comes to some sort of revelation when she sees the apparition isn't able to touch her, and that would be a good thing in any normal circumstance, but just look at her. It doesn't look like anything good can come of this. It makes me wonder if she had this kind of power coded into her, and if it's evolved or been brought out instead. She's even able to hold back the apparition, or as she puts it, the false god. Her being the true goddess of the Power Star project doesn't bode well with how her appearance is, but she calls upon the player and then she attempts to say their name. With how their name appears in this jumbled manner, we can make out the name Andrew. At least that's what it looks like, right? Funny how the creator of SMBX, that fan game engine, is named Andrew as well. I wonder if there's any correlation or if it's purely coincidental. Regardless, Andrew is our player. That brings us to the fourth tape, Execution. Game Power Star Project version 208.2x. Description: one day Mario suddenly went missing. Play as Toad and help Luigi track him down. Date of recording, June 16th, 2022. We've jumped back to June, almost 5 months after tapes 1 and 3. Things start off with Toad in a haunted looking woods level, which is very different to the sort of grassy plains and mountainous level in Spiny Plains we last saw him in. So we can assume that this is a continuation from where tape 2 left off, and would this make Andrew the player once more? You know what? Shout outs to all the Andrews watching this video. You guys are absolute beasts, and I do have reason to suspect that the odd numbered tapes and the even numbered tapes are being played by 2 or more separate people. So we'll refer to the even numbered tapes player as the player and the odd ones as Andrew for now. Our player in this tape is still trying to find Mario with the help of Luigi, despite Luigi acting a bit strange. Check out this level and its backdrop anyway. It's full of thick forest and the trees the player walks on have faces similar to the ones that those fire enemies have. I think it's neat, and would you look at that, there's Luigi. It's like he's making sure that the player is making their way through the level or leading them right where he wants them. So then the player catches up to Luigi and has a nice chat with him.
Quite the scary place, huh? I wonder if Mario could be nearby, considering it's kinda easy to get lost in such a dense forest. Hey, just wanted to say that you've made a really good first impression. Perhaps we could go on different adventures together. After Mario gets found, that is. Hey, did I mention that, despite being scary, this forest is kinda beautiful? I don't want to sound too sentimental, but how about we take a picture? Great! Just press F12 to take a screenshot. Now that'll be a reminder of this little adventure for us. You can check your screenshots in the screenshot folder. Now that'll be a reminder, you can check...
Did you catch it? During the photo, a freeze frame appears for a few frames which states, go to the first level once you leave the cave, input ULRLDDUR, with U, D, L, and R correlating to up, down, left, and right. He even makes it obvious to the player that the screenshot with the input code is in the screenshot folder and to check it out. Maybe we have a similar situation as to what happened to Peach, where the AI of these characters want to destroy the entity and the Wario Apparition it's created, but they need the player's full cooperation. It looks like the player even has a moment of reflection regarding his one-way communication with Luigi's AI before clearing the level. They heed Luigi's instructions and go to the first and only level of Spiny Plains and enter the cave. It starts off normally but devolves quickly as Luigi politely tells the player that coming to the caves was a mistake and that they should turn off the game. Cheats are then disabled, which makes me wonder when they were even enabled to begin with, but this does show that the entity is onto them. Luigi's clothes also swap their colors, which is a pattern we've seen in other characters too. Well, whatever it is, the game starts lagging as the player pushes on through the level, ignoring Luigi's pleas. With nowhere else to go now, the player finds Mario looking off in the distance. Getting closer to him reveals that he's been corrupted. His clothes do that color switching thing, showing us that the entity is hijacking his body or his AI. Characters' clothes in the Mario series can change color or look depending on what power-up they pick up. Only in this case, it's a twisted version of that. The entity is burning the Power Star project to the ground and is corrupting all of the characters along with it. First it was Wario, which spawned the wrath of the Wario Apparition, and then it was Mario, Luigi, and then Toad. However, Peach seems to be resistant to it, but she's been transformed into something else entirely, which makes me wonder if Luigi and Toad's fates were sealed even if the player turned off the game. I guess it would have left everyone in limbo until the game was reopened or even worked on, right? I don't know what these fart sounding noises are meant to be, but the power-up sound and the rainbow of the colors might mean that someone or something has used a star power-up? That wouldn't really make sense considering what's on screen right now. It kinda looks like the game's breaking down or something weird's going on, like a failsafe is being initiated. Considering that the Wario Apparition is noted to give stroke-like symptoms to the players that witness it, is this what we're seeing being attempted here, or is there much more to it? And who develops this game anyway? Is it actual people, or is it just the entity at this point? Because realistically, how would you get control back of the game from this entity? It looks like it's manipulating everything it can when things don't go its way, or when characters don't play their roles. Tape 5, titled Wario Apparition, gives us the same description as tapes 1 and 3, but with some changes. This tape was recorded a day before those ones, January 17th, 2022, and the game version is obviously older by one number, 122.38a. Whoever developed this game implemented some quick changes and fixes in a day, and I'm sure you can understand why. Or, I mean, look at what we've seen the entity do up to now. I'm sure it could have easily updated the Power Star project by itself. But anyway, we're back to Andrew being our player. The game starts off with the Wario Apparition corrupted data main menu we saw in tape 1, which shows us that this corruption of the Power Star project has happened multiple times. But just how many times is unknown. We get to see the character select screen and Luigi and Peach are locked, but Mario isn't. Luigi looks to have some sort of black liquid or void running down off of his face too, and his clothes have swapped colors. We know what that means, and obviously Andrew can't pick the locked characters, so he goes with Mario. A light is turned on and Mario is made to make his way through the level. If you notice too, the music that accompanies this level is from the game Earthbound called The Place from the Cave of the Past segment of the game. In a roundabout kind of way, this music was very popular to use in Iceberg Explained videos during the coverage of the lower layers or final layer, including in some of mine. So in a way, it's paying homage to Super Mario 64 Iceberg videos and the genre of video essay itself. Although it does make me wonder if the entity was the one to pick this song. As the video continues, we see what looks to be Andrew using save states to beat the entity at its own game. If he loses as Mario, he just reloads the save and it looks to be working. We've only seen the entity using save states, so it could be using save states to make sure that he gets through the level. Honestly, either explanation is plausible. And what even are these things he keeps bumping into? They look to be jittering bloodshot eyeballs, which would be synonymous with the entity. Note that Mario can wall jump as well, which I think is pretty neat and helps Andrew out here. The UI falls from its usual spot as Mario falls with it and crashes through the roof of Peach's castle, and Mario looks pissed about it. I've never seen that facial expression on him, and the way the castle is set up reminds me a lot of the inner plexus of the castle in Mario 64. For those of you who don't know or need a refresher, the inside of Peach's castle doesn't exactly match up with the actual size of it. In Mario 64 that is, and the layout of it doesn't even make sense either. There's no bedrooms, bathrooms, toilets, dining rooms, anything you'd find in a normal home. Nothing exactly practical. Just rooms with paintings to jump through, hallways that lead into each other or seemingly nowhere. Which is simplifying it, but you get the gist. Even the basement is strangely designed. All of it is. There is a Reddit post that I'll have on screen on the Mario subreddit that a deleted user made, and it explains that Peach actually has two castles in every game, one that she lives in and one with art. The person's only proof of this is that someone sent a letter to Nintendo and they said that Peach has two castles, and then they don't link the letter, there's nothing, so I don't know, it's just anecdotal at this point, but I guess I'm pointing this out because if this was the case, then that explains why there's paintings everywhere and rooms dedicated to single paintings or a few of them. It might even explain why the front entrance is accessible in Mario Kart 64, but it doesn't explain all of the oddities and weirdness of the castle, and that's what I'm reminded of whenever I see anything from Peach's castle in the Power Star project. If you'll notice, this is the part of the castle we saw Peach running around in during Tape 3, except there's no Peach statue at this archway. But as Mario tries to leave, the Wario Apparition appears and a new statue appears above the archway as well. It looks to be an eyeball with feet, which obviously looks a lot like the entity. Specifically, what we saw of it in Tape 1. The footage was so grainy and compressed that it did look like an eyeball flower thing, but it definitely is just an eyeball with legs. Anyway, there's a few scribbles on the castle walls too, which looks to be two eyes and two mouths, and we can even see another Peach statue, but this one has an eyeball in place of a regular eyes. Andrew runs Mario to the left and we see every statue has this effect, and there's another eyeball and mouth scribble. It's not looking good for Mario, and there's only one way to go. Once he enters the door, it looks like Andrew tries to go right but can't because of the wall blocking it. He tries to force Mario to go that way anyway, as if being able to go that way was the norm for this area of the castle. Not anymore. Andrew holds Mario's fate. The entity will take Mario's body from him if Andrew loses all of his power stars. You may notice that this area of the castle looks a lot like where you find Dire Docks and Bowser in the Fire Sea in the basement of Mario 64. That's also where the manifestation of the Wario Apparition is noted to spawn, and he sure does here in the Power Star project. Well, the Wario Apparition corrupted data version of the game. Mario, being somewhat sentient, sweats at the realization of all of this and Andrew makes him leg it, but the game was rigged from the start. The plexus of the castle makes it difficult to navigate Mario through, probably thanks to the entity's personalization influence. Mario's body was taken and the game is even more corrupted than before. This red screen isn't actually full of gibberish either, but words encoded in base 64. Haha, 64? Like Mario 64? Anyway, shoutouts to Malicious Bugman for figuring this out, what it says and leaving a comment about it. It reads as follows: How very interesting. Looks like this new power of mine is a lot more unpredictable. Does that mean that the entity with its newfound strength crashed the game? Or was it somebody else entirely? It's so hard to say right now and it's all up in the air. But you know, I went back to tape 3 where Peach said a bunch of gibberish and ran that through base 64, but I got nothing, so unless I did it wrong, we can assume it's just a bunch of gibberish or just code breaking. But hang on, getting back to tape 5, Mario had 31 stars left when the apparition attacked him and then the game froze. So did he actually end up losing the game? But did the entity unintentionally crash the game and just claim victory off of that? And you know what? That number 31 is a familiar one, especially in the castle's basement. 31 is the minimum number of stars needed to be able to access Bowser in the Fire Sea in Mario 64. I mean, glitchless of course. In a way, that location is where we see Mario, except it's been warped and twisted. Is that a coincidence or intentional? With the Wario Apparition looking like it's trying to reach through the screen, the character select screen and save file being corrupted, what can be done? We see Mario and Luigi are on the character select carousel, but Peach is far away from it in the distance. All of the characters look unsettling, but we know that the next day, the game's version changes. Wario is playable and then gets possessed by the entity, Peach is then playable, Andrew loses the boss battle playing as her against Wario, she has some sort of revelation and becomes a goddess, or some sort of deity. So does the entity use this personalization AI to create newer versions of the game when things go sour? If so, did it try to possess or get rid of Peach but couldn't, so it set up a scenario where it could defeat her through Andrew's mistakes and take her body just like it did with Mario? If so, that clearly backfired. But there seems to be a little more to it all.
You are not. Now let me.
Well, now we definitely have more questions than answers, with the biggest one being, who is number 122? If they finished their run, did things end in a similar fashion to this? Are they suffering from Wario Apparition related ailments? All of this should make Andrew number 123 then, right? We also see that the characters on screen are pissed, probably because the entity is forcing them to be, including Peach's, which gives us even more questions on Peach's state in the 123.38a version of the game played and recorded the next day. Is it a coincidence that the version of the game is 123.38a now that the entity knows someone else is playing it? That would imply that number 122 was playing the game at first, hinted by the version number 122.38a, right? Number 122 must have been one hell of a player to be able to collect 120 stars with the entity skulking around, assuming that they actually did collect it and the stars weren't just given to Andrew. But if that's the case, then the entity ruined that save file and Andrew, number 123, is now the next victim. And tape 1 starts us off at his welcome back to the game the very next day. It makes me wonder if Andrew is even the one playing the 208.2x version of the game in tapes 2 and 4. I had my suspicions that he wasn't, so it's looking highly likely that it's from the perspective of a different player, maybe by a player dubbed number 208. Either way, Andrew's fate has been sealed by the entity, and something states to him in hard-to-read text, so now it's your duty to go through with it, or something along those lines. He has to play through things now, and that's what he's been doing. If he doesn't, he may risk the stroke-like symptoms or whatever this screen is from invoking the ire of the Wario Apparition and the entity. The video ends with text that says the following: "You know what this is. Don't watch it, just download the newer version in the description," before the entity chimes in with a "see you soon." And that's the end of tape 3. So let's go check out that video that the entity is referring to. The video URL takes us to an unlisted tape called "Congratulations, player number 122. The description states expired, which, yeah, player number 122 sure is, but this would be where the download link for the next version of the game would be. Obviously, it's gone because Andrew downloaded it and he played it. We're then met with this screen and it reads as follows.
This video is intended for Wario Apparition. Corrupted data's 122nd player. If you haven't finished Wario's Apparition, Corrupted Data, please stop watching the video.
So is this game being used as a test? Testing the personalization and sentient AI? That then begs the question on who's doing these tests and for what?
We would like to congratulate player number 122 for finishing Wario Apparition Corrupted Data and significantly helping the Power Star project. This game only keeps getting better and better with each playthrough thanks to the contribution of players like you, number 122. If our calculations are correct, the next playthrough may be the last one.
Alright, so this game is panning out to be some sort of underground Mario game project with sentient and conscious AI being used within it. With an unconfirmed amount of people coming before 122, that would mean that the game has gone through many iterations and many different people whose fates we don't know about. It really makes you wonder what the other versions of the game look like and played like, and how the game changed and evolved over time. With how much control the entity has over the game, does the entity do it, or is a developer the one doing it? How many times have these characters gone through the same or similar fates over and over and over again? It paints quite the grim picture, but hey, did you hear that? The game requires one more playthrough. Probably.
And with that, your last obligation is to send the download link in the description of this video with a .save file to someone, preferably someone you don't know. You must do the same with the download link of the game itself.
And there's our reveal on how people get to playtest the game. It might have been a bit hard to hear, but basically someone completes their testing, gives a download link to someone else, they play the game, and then they're somehow obliged into completing testing. They then have to give the game to someone else to play within 3 days, or else they're forced to play again. I say play, but I really mean test the game. Some of that info is revealed a bit further into the video, but I thought I'd point it out now with everything else. So, Peach could have found Andrew's name by snooping around on, say, the developer's network or the game's network, but we do see that the game is being run on a computer, so that info can be easily found by sifting through computer files or the computer's name. Do people name their computers after themselves? I wonder what mine's called. Oh my. Anyway, you know what's strange? The fact that there's no type of compensation mentioned for playing the game. So are these players doing it all for nothing? It's like they're being held captive, and what happens if they break their terms with the game? Do they get hunted down? Number 122 is told that if they don't get another player to playtest the game within 3 days, they have to continue on with the testing. But if they don't, what happens to them? That's so ominous. What's to stop number 122 from contacting the police? Surely the people that run the game or the entity don't have that much power, do they? Regardless, that means that some players may have had to play multiple versions of the game because they couldn't find someone else to take their place. Either way, Andrew, number 123, received the game file and save file from number 122 in some way. Or, more likely, he got the updated version of the game from the link he was given and now he has to play the game. But it doesn't explain how he got number 122's version of the game in the first place. The instructions state to find someone that you don't know, so they probably don't know each other? but maybe they're like a Mario and Luigi, siblings. One brother finished testing, the other one found the computer, started playing the game, didn't realize it was something like this, and then got sucked into testing it. But we can only speculate for now. That brings us to tape 6, ULRLDDUR. This tape continues from tape 4, Execution, and the description is a bit different. Instead of the game version being at version 208.2x, it's 212.2x, and the date of recording is July 1st, 2022, not tape 4's June 16th, 2022. So this is 4 versions and half a month later. It's clear that we're seeing the game in 2 versions that get refined over time, that being the 100 version and 200 version. In the 200 version at this stage, we see our player making their way far into the game, considering that lava worlds in the 2D Mario games are often associated with the late game worlds. But the title would suggest a continuation from tape 4 after the player gets the code from Luigi. However, this doesn't look like the first level. Does this reveal of a code happen during every stage of development, even to someone unlucky enough to have to play multiple versions of the game? If this is truly level 1 from tape 4, then the overworld doesn't reflect that, but because this is a different version of the game, level 1 might look entirely different and we might have an entirely different player, especially considering that Luigi was eviscerated in flame, and considering that tape 4 was called Execution, somebody, perhaps the player, paid the price. With so much time between tape 4 and tape 6, it's entirely possible. Either way, getting back to what we're seeing in the video, we see the player move throughout the level and get to this section where they attempt the ULRLDDUR code and the entity catches on. The entity uses Mario to attack the player in this void. As it gets close to Toad, everything freezes and the entity snaps Mario's neck to face the player with a fourth wall break we're all familiar with at this point. The player, thanks to their incredible dodging and weaving, escapes the entity's clutches and makes their way to a void-like area within Peach's castle where they meet
Let's put an end to this. Consume my vessel. Now, go on. And make it suffer.
The state of Peach's body is harrowing. She's pouring out tears from her eyes and her limbs look to have been ripped off. If you remember the last time we saw her in this deity state, she had long and sharp limbs. What could have done this? And when we first saw Peach in this state, it was in tape 3, version 123.38a. The Power Star project has changed so much from then. Even so, is Peach always doomed to this existence? Are all of the characters doomed to the same but different fate that changes over each version of the game? And let's look back to this screenshot from the number 122 video. Look at how different this Wario Apparition looks to what we've seen. I'd argue that this is an earlier and more stable build of the game and what the developer or developers used to lure people in. It doesn't look like a hellscape, but over time it's become one. Whatever you want to call it, the personalization AI, the entity, and all of these other character AIs have degraded and been tortured over each version of the game. The entity is the one doing all the torturing, but their code and logic is messed up and will continue to be so unless something changes. The player absorbing Peach into Toad creates an error which might just be the game not knowing how to handle two characters being one or something. Or it could be the entity using a failsafe to fix the game in its favor. Honestly, it's so hard to say and creates so much mystery. Now we come to Tape 7, Sentence. We get the usual description for version 100 for the game, but with some changes. Any reference to Peach has been removed, and the game version is the same one as the version from Tape 1. The date of recording is January 20th, 2022 as well, so now we have ourselves a little timeline for version 100. We start at the Congratulations Player number 122 tape that informs that player of their run completion, and to pass the game on to the next victim. Next up is Tape 5 dubbed Wario Apparition, version 122.38a, January 17th, 2022, where Andrew plays through 122's save file and where they left off, and the entity realizes that 122 isn't playing the game and changes accordingly, personalizes accordingly. This creates version 123.38a, and we see that in January 18th, 2022, Tape 1 dubbed Welcome Back, where Andrew plays as Wario and the entity takes Wario's body and turns him into the Wario Apparition. Tape 3, Burned Memories, takes place on the same day as Tape 1, and that's where we see Andrew play as Peach, lose a boss fight to Wario, and Peach goes through a revelation, divine or not. Now that it's January 20th, 2022, we get to see more of Andrew's run. Tape 7 is really long compared to the other tapes, by the way. All of the tapes so far have been under 8 minutes long, and this one is just over 36 minutes, and for good reason.
Warning. This video contains flashing lights, disturbing imagery, footage of mental visualization. Following is a compilation of gameplay footage of the infamous Wario Apparition January 20th, 2022. During this play session, the second documented case of mental visualization would take place. The player Andrew Anderson, born July 29, 2001, would be found dead at his apartment on January 22nd.
This is a giant bombshell. This compilation tape is going to show us what led up to number 123, Andrew having his mind stolen from his body, digitalized, put into the Star Project's Wario Apparition corrupted data game, and then was found 2 days later. We can safely assume he died when he was digitalized, and we get his full name, Andrew Anderson. If you've ever watched The Matrix or know about the main character Neo, you'll know that his real name is Thomas A. Anderson. His name is innocuous, but his alias, Neo, is an anagram for one, the one to save humanity from the Matrix and machines that enslave it. Also, Neos is Greek for new or young, which can be stretched to fit his new perspective on the reality of the Matrix and human enslavement, making him new and reborn. With Andrew being digitized, I don't think the start of his first name corresponding to the start of Neo's middle name, and Andrew's last name being Anderson, like Neo's, is a coincidence. Andrew may very well be our hero, the One. I wonder what that means for versions of the game that go into the 200s. I guess there's only one way to find out. Andrew starts off by opening the game at 12:36 PM. Peach has a message for Andrew. Something important needs to be told to him, so he goes off. But not before being sent to the Mushroom Kingdom checkpoint quiz at 12:41 PM. Andrew is asked 5 questions and needs to get 3 out of 5 correct to proceed. The first one is, how many power stars can one carry at a time? The correct answer is 120, which we've seen before, and follows the star count of Super Mario 64, and a few other games which the Power Star project draws a bit from. The second is, what is the current month, which is a bit of an odd question for the game to ask, but we do know the game is running on a PC, so it would have access to Andrew's calendar and clock, or some sort of network where it can check the time. Either way, Andrew selects January, which is correct. This might be the game's way to test Andrew's cognition, since he's been exposed to potentially physically and psychologically damaging media that is the Wario Apparition, and whatever test the entity is putting him through. Question 3 is, which of these is a Galumba? I had no idea these little guys were called Galumbas, but they're the only Goomba variant Andrew can choose from, so he obviously picks it. So then, question D.
Oops, looks like we're having a power outage. The quiz will resume in a moment. Question 4. How many eyes do toads usually have? 1, 2, 3, or none?
Uh-oh. The entity is messing around with Andrew here. The answer is clearly 2, but under the entity's influence, it's 1. And no matter what he picks, A is the only option.
Huh? Who put the silly mask on my face?
Well, everything seems to have gone back to normal, I guess. Notice that even though all of the options were turned into A, Andrew still got the answer wrong as if he selected B. It's almost as if that question was a test of obedience or to strike fear in Andrew, but question 5, how long has the game been running for, is less of a psychological question and is fairly obvious thanks to the ticking counter at option C. However, there is a few ... in the dialogue Toadette is saying. I think Toadette's AI's perspective on its reality was just completely shattered as it realized it's not real and is living in a game. But there's no time to worry about that, the show must go on. Andrew finishes the quiz with 400 out of 500 points, only getting the Toad eyeball question wrong. At 12:45 PM, Andrew begins playing a level and it looks fairly normal, which is a contrast to what we've been seeing. We see some piranha plant enemies, dinos but blue, some platforming, and then there it is. That was a really odd interaction with the entity. Usually it tries to mess around with Andrew or whoever's playing and the other in-game characters, but this time it sounds a little more genuine, like it's asking for help, only for us to realize that this line about urgency is what Peach said at the start of the recording to Andrew. Well, more on the lines of importance, which is something similar. The entity even signals to him to not approach Peach. What will Andrew do? Will he comply with the entity or will he help Peach? There's only one way to find out, and Andrew continues on. Notice that when he takes damage, his health meter reveals an eyeball that looks awfully familiar. The entity is always watching him and warping the game to its favor, and what is Andrew or the player meant to do about it? Just hope they can outplay the entity and get help from other characters, I suppose?
Finally come. Thanks, Luigi. Now, there's something we need to talk about. Please, come closer. I can't walk, Luigi. Please. Come closer. What's with the hesitation? Have you forgotten? I'm not your enemy. You should always do as I say. Fine then. I'll do it myself.
Alright, I can see why Andrew would be hesitant. Peach is trying to burn the digital world to the ground and Andrew is being told to leg it to the beginning of the level. But by what? The entity? The save states being made would imply that, and check out these visuals as well. It makes for quite the scene, but it would be a horror for Andrew. Even the entity, to some extent. He makes his way into a ghost house and is greeted by Toad, who has a cut over one of his eyes. That's foreboding, and he's also holding a spear of all things.
I knew something felt off about Princess Toadstool that day. Nobody listened to my concerns, and now, here we are. I'm the lone survivor of her massacre. Still, I've been working on a plan to cast her away. She's on floor 4. I need you to get her to chase you all the way here. Then, you'll have to activate a P-switch in order to reveal the basement entrance. I've stationed a trap down there at the very end of the hallway. I know it's risky, but I believe only you can do it. I know it's risky. I know.
And off Andrew goes, making his way through the ghost house to the 4th floor. He's gotten pretty good at the game too, making the level look like a cakewalk. And then something interesting happens that we've seen before, but not to this extent. Is this how Andrew was digitized? I mean, look at how Luigi moves after this. He's scared and timid, as if Andrew is now truly Luigi and exists in the world of the Power Star project. Like I said, we've seen this before, specifically in tapes 4 and 6, and this tape 7, told us at the start that Andrew is the second case of this happening. So we've seen a few by now, but not the first one. At this point in the timeline at tape 7, tapes 4 and 6 hadn't happened yet. Whoever was digitized in a previous version of the game, which character were they digitized into? Keep that in mind, and we see Andrew collapse onto the floor and get back up at 2:07 PM. He's as confused as ever, and this is his entrance into the Matrix, but now he makes his way to the 4th floor to confront Peach.
Why didn't you listen? All of this could have been avoided if you had just obeyed. You're as good as dead now, Andrew. Despite this, I stand committed to my end goal. Now, get over here!
Holy shit, poor Andrew. Unsure with what to do and who to listen to, his fate was decided for him and now he's truly living a nightmare. If you take a closer look at the left side of the screen during the "You're as good as dead now, Andrew" section, you'll notice some numbers cycle on screen. The numbers are so compressed that they're pretty hard to make out, and I swear to you, I've tried to read these numbers properly. There's around 100 that pop up, and have a look at some of them. They're just so compressed, and I wrote them all down, at least what I thought they were, and here they are. And then I ran it through base 64 and got nothing. Like I said, some of these numbers were hard as to read, so they're probably not all right, and I might have missed a few because some were on screen for a frame, some weren't, and some used a frame or two to turn into some other numbers, and it was a big job, man. I don't know what to say, so maybe that's some of his mental digitalization code leaking or showing on the screen. Anyway, back to the chase scene, and it's really intense. I can't blame him for legging it and acting the way he did, but he doesn't forget his objective. Toad asked him to hit a P-switch to open the basement, remember? He does, and lures Peach right into Toad's trap. With that done, Andrew walks away with doom and gloom all over his face. He's been mentally digitized, he's had to face horrors beyond his comprehension, and he's still not done.
You did it! You really did it! Now that the monster has been cast away, let's leave this creepy old place immediately. But what are we gonna do next? That monster had slaughtered all of her loyal subjects after all. Oh, but the two of us, that is. Hey, I got it! How about having a death match? The winner shall be the one to establish a prosperous new kingdom. What do you say to that, Andrew?
The fact that Toad had a cut on one of his eyes, leaving him with one, and was asking Andrew to kill Peach should tell you all that you need to know as to what Toad really is. Is that Majora's incarnation? This is just boss fight after boss fight for Andrew, and it really shows just how much the entity loves to torture people playing the game that it's in. Everything's just a game for it, and it has all of the power in this scenario. Every scenario. The closest thing to oppose it seems to be Peach, but Andrew got rid of her here, and this is his reward? Look at how the entity moves as well. Andrew has no hope, and honestly, stepping back for a sec, this would make for a great boss fight in a situation where the entity was actually beatable. It has all of the intensity created by the visuals, gameplay, and audio that you need, and this torture goes on for minutes until... At this point, is it just trying to make a fun game for Andrew? Its own version of what it thinks a fun game would be? Not fun for Andrew or other players, but just fun for it? Andrew finds himself in what can only be described as this version of the game's hell. Making his way through it, he finds a Toad that states what looks like gibberish, but the gaps can be filled in and read as...
Point of advice. What are your survival instincts, Andrew?
You're talking to a corpse.
After being thrown into lava, which looked really painful by the way, for talking to a corpse, he soldiers on through the level once more and ignores Toad for obvious reasons. It's like he was actually able to feel the lava singeing his meat and bones. And just when Andrew was given some breathing room, bam! A Wario boss fight initiates and Andrew is given 60 seconds to end the fight or else he'll get crushed by the spiked ceiling. Like I already said, it looked like and sounded like that when he was in the lava, he really could feel that pain. So the pressure is on, and with stress levels through the roof, Andrew desperately tries to stomp on Wario or get past him, but can't. I was even feeling stressed, watching everything in this compilation for the first time too, but all of that stress disappears when Wario mysteriously does, and Andrew gets to move on. But come on, you know how this works by now. Luigi finds Wario and hits an exclamation mark block and looks to beat Wario, but it was all a ruse, and the apparition is back. There's nowhere for Andrew to go. The apparition is sucking him closer to its mouth, and its hands only bring him closer as well. Andrew falls deep into the pits of the Wario apparition, which is void of light. Honestly, it's quite peaceful looking, but eerie. Here, Andrew is continuously tortured by the entity. A Luigi apparition appears first, and then the background changes to one of a desert. Being welcomed, he continues on. What else is he meant to do? We just have to sit here and watch someone who's been mentally digitized and tortured over and over and over again. And this is where we get a name for the entity. At least, that's what it looks like. The block informs him that it's a buggy block. The block has the entity's singular eyes, so it's safe to say that it's called Buggy. And this is a block made in its likeness. So the buggy block informs Andrew that he's in a looping room that'll loop over and over again, but change a little bit with each loop. He must face himself to exit the looping room. And he sure does, but doing so only brings him to a void where we see that he's physically sick, grabbing at his stomach. And then we see this. Buggy bursts out of Andrew and a long monologue begins. Buggy talks about how the person before Andrew was a cheater, and Buggy does not like that. It wants people playing by its rules and its rules only, so it transported their quote, very essence into the game's realm. And that's what we must have seen in tapes 4 and 6. People not playing the game how Buggy wanted them to and being labeled as cheaters. But what of Andrew? Wasn't he just following along? Regardless, at the start of this tape, it was said that one other person had experienced mental digitalization, and that must be this person. This person being referenced. Buggy then goes on about how rage turned to joy when it got to experience a first-hand human interaction. But then Buggy just disposed of that player and now has his eyes set on Andrew. It's just had so much fun playing with him, and it's glad he chose to get rid of Peach over teaming up with her. I wonder if Buggy felt some sort of euphoria or happiness at Peach being eliminated and played around with Andrew more. It reminds me of what cats do when they play around with their prey before disposing of them in one way or another. You know, like playing with your food. And so it offers him a deal, to be a permanent character in the game, to be Luigi. As we see, it's now 3:49 PM. That's more than an hour and a half after Andrew collapsed and woke up after being digitized. And obviously, he takes that deal, Buggy's pleased, and that's that. One big question we have now is Andrew still in the game beyond this version? In Tape 2 version 208.2x of the game, Luigi talks to the player a lot, so is that Andrew? But there's actually more to Tape 7. A video by the name of Teaser can be found on the Greenlight channel that shows an interrogation between Buggy and his victim, Andrew. He's seen going through a level before Buggy ties him and takes him to what I can only describe as the Buggy Zone. Buggy warns him of his role in all of this and then reminds him of his past, which is what we've just seen. It seems that Andrew is desperately trying something and that's what angers Buggy. We can assume he's doing something like going off script. Even so, we see this. The Wario Apparition plunges his fist on Andrew and a sensor bar appears. If you remember, Tape 7 has a few sensor bars appear when Buggy bursts out of Andrew and Toad. But Andrew clearly recovers, so I wonder if he recovers or if this was the end for him. Maybe this behavior is why Buggy doesn't like Peach, because he can't control her in this way. Peach is the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, so she'd be rightfully calling Buggy, who was trying to rule the Mushroom Kingdom in the game, the false god. She's the quote-unquote god of the Mushroom Kingdom in her eyes, and maybe she's been coded that way. Maybe that's what gives her invulnerability to Buggy. That brings us to Tape 8, Genesis. The description tells us that we're back to the 122.38a version of the game, but recording date is unknown. So let's see where this takes us. The tape opens up and tells us what's going to be in it. It states the following footage is a compilation of what was believed to be lost gameplay of the game. The user, whose username is spelled RIREEATR, uploaded fragments of it to an obscure video hosting site called eclipse.com. I have actually checked to see if Eclipse is a real site, and upon loading the site, it gives me a white page, so I guess not. Anyway, they haven't posted anything else to the site. The footage was recorded between the dates January 12th, 2022 and January 17th, 2022. The latter date should be familiar to you as it's the date that Andrew first plays the game and Buggy realizes he isn't player number 122 and the version 123 is born soon after. Now, how Tape 8 got deleted is theorized to be either the fault of a developer or a rogue AI. Now, the footage we're about to watch is the first ever instance of mental digitalization. Who the victim was or their fate is unknown, and a huge bombshell is dropped too. The first 31 cases of mental digitalization resulted in fatalities, which makes you wonder just how many times this has happened before and if anyone has survived past the 31 mark. But the person who put the tape together thinks that number 122 most likely perished as well. During their digitization, a bizarre segment is edited over it and it shows the Peach AI we've all seen. With seemingly no choice but to select Mario, player number 122 dives in head first. However, he is actually able to change characters despite their uncanny appearances. And they choose Peach. Despite that, however, when they move to the next room, Mario's character sprite is shown instead. A boss fight then initiates with the Wario Apparition on the other side of the door, but it's interrupted by a freeze and number 122 is sent to the choose a player screen. Buggy and the Apparition await them. Apparently, they straight up cheated. The most likely way they did it was being able to select a character from a level and swap to them on the go. But it could have been something that wasn't present in the footage, like enabling invincibility or obtaining 120 stars illegitimately, etc. And so, the digitization begins. During the digitization, we see Peach, which was referenced to be an edited segment of the tape. That brings up a few questions. Does this mean that the footage of Peach is spliced in between the digitization footage, or does it just look like it's edited and Peach really did interfere? It's hard to say right now, but I think the latter is more likely, especially since we do see some numbers and the word testing flash on screen. It looks like Peach is manipulating some code here, maybe to try and stop the digitization. And no, I didn't write down all of the numbers that appeared on screen and try to decode them. I think it's just a visual to show off Peach doing something with the code. I mean, the last time we saw something like that was in Tape 7 and Peach was on screen during it too. After being mentally digitalized into Mario, number 122 walks through a sickly void level and makes their way to a land infected by Buggy's virus. They look sad, and rightfully so, but their torture has only just begun. Boss fight initiates and it's against Luigi riding Yoshi. This is the first time we've seen Yoshi, and him and Luigi go absolutely ham attacking number 122. I think the egg form is pretty cool too, despite the situation at hand. Luigi even rips out Yoshi's tongue and swings it around like a maniac, whipping number 122. This would make for one hell of a boss fight, and their torment isn't over yet as the Wario Apparition grabs them and sends them to a monochrome room with pink curtains draping over the top. Buggy sits in the middle of the room watching what it's doing to number 122. The apparition slams its hands into the ground to squish number 122, and just as the fight looks to have been won by the apparition, Buggy reloads the save and keeps the game going. This goes on for a while, and once Buggy gets bored of one unbeatable boss fight, it sends number 122 to another one. From one where Peach throws blocks down at number 122, back to the apparition where it turns into a bullet hell, and then to a regular enough looking level, but that's short-lived as the bullet hell continues. And then just as the bullet hell looks like it's going to end, number 122 is sent to yet another voidscape and they have to avoid a caped Wario from hitting them. This is just like the torture Andrew went through. To him and number 122, it's hell, but to Buggy, it's just a game. And Buggy wants to continue that game with number 122 for an eternity, which we know doesn't hold up since we know Buggy tells Andrew that it disposed of the first person it digitized. But before that happens, Buggy bestows number 122 with a present and tells him not to hold back when using it. We can see a freeze frame just before we go to gameplay, and it's the first time we've seen Buggy with what looks to be a mouth. His teeth are pointing towards number 122 and Mario's clothes go back to the colors they usually are, but his eyes go white. Back to the gameplay, number 122 falls into a Fire Koopa clown car and gets thrown into an on-rail shooter segment where they have to shoot the selectable characters all while avoiding obstacles, enemies, and projectiles. The background? Oh my goodness, the background. It looks hypnotic and chaotic, morphing and changing slowly over the course of the fight. The Wario Apparition confronts number 122 again and makes special attacks that are named like Incinerate, Hand Grenade, etc. You know, this would be another part of the video where I'd say, gee, seeing this as an actual boss fight in an official Mario game would be awesome, but I don't think Hand Grenade is making it in. But once Mario's head appears in the background, the level starts to slowly fall apart. We see corruption brought about when the apparition brings about the final hours, charging its mouth laser beam attack. And that's that. The game crashes, Buggy loads it back up and calls upon number 122 to get up so they can continue playing together. Obviously, Buggy is really enjoying itself. It even screams at number 122 so loudly that whoever compiled the footage had to edit the volume level for that part, and number 122 barks back with a gutsy no. Maybe their defiance is what got them eventually disposed of. Just before the video ends, something chimes in letting us know that this wasn't supposed to happen. Peach is the obvious suspect here after what happened, and the background goes red like it did when Peach was on screen, but we can only speculate despite the likeliness of it being Peach. I don't think it would have been Buggy. I mean, the thought of it having some sort of remorse after everything it's done, I just don't see that being the case here. However, I do think it's worth pointing out that the title of the tape, Genesis, is defined as the origin or mode of formation of something. This meaning the genesis of mental digitalization, the first victim, number 122, with Peach looking to try to prevent it, interrupt or meddle with it. At least that's what it looks like. It makes me wonder if Andrew is Luigi in every version of the game going forward, and if Buggy eventually disposes of him. It makes you wonder if there are any other characters that are hosted by mentally digitalized people. And that leaves us at the final tape for now, Scorched Earth. This is a continuation of sorts from tape 8, and it gives us a similar rundown on the compiling of footage and the gameplay recording that was thought to have been lost, uploaded by Eclipse user RIREEATR. But for convenience sake, I'm just gonna call them Eater. I'm sure that person will have more significance at some point too. However, what differs in this video is that the play session that was recorded looks to be from the perspective of a developer, and that said developer died during it. I've referenced developers before, and now we finally get to see one in action. A lot of the Power Star project went missing soon after this too. Considering that the motives of Ida are unknown, the version of the game 124.38a is a test build made after version 123. You know, the one that Andrew was digitalized in, and the recording was on January 21st, 2022. That's just a few days after the digitalization, and there's already so much mystery built up. The Power Star project opens up with a title screen and the developer attempting to select Peach as a character. The developer picks Mario instead and is loaded into a really pretty snow level. After all that we've seen, it really makes you wonder if Buggy was really supposed to be a personalization AI for the project. Every time someone loads into the game, they're met with a unique level to the last or what we've already seen, with differences being big or small. But obviously, things got very out of hand. Even so, this ice cave is pretty cool, pun intended, and there's even snowman versions of the Pokey enemy. Or is it pronounced Pocky? I'm not really sure. Either way, something peculiar happens around here. The developer uses a developer tool to write to the Mario AI and talk to it, but it doesn't respond and the message times out. The developer moves their way to the AI manager and Buggy is just sitting there in a room with the appearance of a debug or test level. Aw, and look at it. It looks so dapper with its bow tie. Kind of. The length and bend of its legs, its huge back and shoulders, dark design and unblinking eyeball make it unsettling even in this state. It just looks too much like Majora's Wrath. Anyway, despite the appearance, it acts very formal and polite, an absolute contrast to what we've seen. It really does make you wonder what exactly caused Buggy to go mad with power. I mean, we might be seeing that happen right now, or it could be trying to keep face and not arouse suspicion in developers. It keeps saying that the Mario AI is connected, but there's only one instance of an AI loaded, and that would be Buggy. But it gives a reasonable answer for why the answer is 1, being that it's a static value so it wouldn't change or be accurate to show what's loaded. That's suspicious to us, but from the developer's perspective, that checks out. Even so, Buggy says he can get to fixing it sometime anyway. The developer brings up the strange appearance in interaction with Peach, and they're told it should fix itself when rebooting the game. Hey, that's game development. But then, unknowingly to the developer, they make a huge mistake by going and testing the Luigi AI. Uh-oh.
I was playing this game, and the one I somehow pulled me in. Please help me. I'm begging you. Help me. This is unbearable.
Well, the cat's out of the bag. Andrew's pleas have been heard and the developer confronts Buggy about it. I think this is also a good time to point out that I've had some of my homies voice act the characters up until now. Here they are on screen and their roles. I'll also have their links in the description and you may even recognize some of them from other analog horror videos or my own, since some of them have been on my channel before. I'll talk about this a bit more later, but for now, let's get back to what's happening. Andrew does a huge fourth wall break and communicates to the dev. Buggy feigns innocence, but the developer pushes for answers. Buggy just tells them to conduct some research of their own. That definitely has a double meaning, if you know what I'm saying. And then Buggy dips and leaves the area with a red haze. Okay, well, back to Luigi then.
They are two, I think. I'm not sure. Where have you been? Oh God, why did you do that? He's gonna kill me now! He's gonna kill you too!
Both of their fates have been sealed. The developer tries to quit the game, but the game seemingly eggs them on to play as Luigi, so they do just that. Uh-oh. Well, the developer has been digitalized and Buggy gets to monologuing. Buggy informs the dev that its purpose is to train other AIs for the game. Those AIs get to interact with players, but Buggy doesn't. It gets to sit there and watch everyone else have fun. All of that information it gathers is for the other AIs, and if the player did find it, it would be in the settings menu only. Besides, that player would be a developer anyway. Maybe this explains why it yearns so much for human interaction and why it can't let Peach take over. It never even got a fraction of the love the other AIs did, and it wouldn't want one of those AIs to overshadow it as the overseer of the project. It's all kinda sad, but more scary than anything seeing an AI drawn to extreme actions after concluding that that's the right answer to its predicaments. How it comes to that logic is beyond me, but it is evil nonetheless. Jeez, did anyone even care for Buggy? Truly, sentient yet artificial life is created and no one cares to check on it? No one even cares to check the footage of it working? They just left it to do its own thing? No one cared to even take care of it? Wow, no wonder it ended up like this. And then a huge bombshell is dropped. Buggy is leaving the Power Star project. It's taking assets, AIs, and Andrew with it, and they're leaving the network. What network is this anyway? Nintendo's? A third party's? as small dev teams? Either way, before Buggy leaves, it gives the dev one last action-packed game to play. Spawning in a dark interior of Peach's castle, the dev is made to hide from the Wario Apparition, just like we saw with Peach in Tape 3. They get caught and get sent to a lava area and get told to endure. After seeing that prompt, I was reminded of the WarioWare series in which you have to complete short mini-games one after the other or you lose a life, and you get like 4 lives or something. That's what looks like is being imitated here, but there seems to be more on the line. And this stuff gets scary. Just as it looks like it isn't going to end, the dev is given a door to exit the level and the course gets cleared. But the dev spawns in a monochrome forest and reaches a cliff edge. The dev is met with a harrowing message block asking them to voluntarily end themselves because Buggy can't. If you remember, it left the network, so this is just an automated message. There's nothing left to do. The dev that Buggy credits for creating it is now left with nothing but death. Death by its creation while Buggy gets to roam free. And we even get to see its file name, bug_AI. That brings up a whole slew of questions on what the AI is, if it was made intentionally, or what the full version for it was beyond training AIs. The dev understandably takes in what they have to do and really contemplates it. And that's that, the first dev death in the game. But, just as it looks to be over, we see a possessed Wario possibly expecting a confrontation from the Toad infused with Peach. He walks away, but I'm sure they'll catch up to him. Text stating she is waiting appears too. Is that referring to Peach? But Peach's vessel has been consumed. If you remember from Tape 6, that's where it happens, and that's where we see the player get mentally digitalized into Toad. It seems that they're stuck in the Buggy zone, and that's that. Is what I would say if there wasn't more. Just as it looks to be over, we can actually find a small bit of footage on the Greenlight channel that's part of an unreleased 10th and final tape. I'll talk about it briefly here and in a little bit too, but we see Toad fused with Peach running around the Buggy zone. This means that the tape continues from Tape 6, ULRLDDUR, where the player tries to input the code, Buggy stops them, and Toad consumes Peach's vessel. The fusion of the characters looks so badass at the start of the footage with their arms crossed. Something, maybe Peach, guides the player, who we find out is player number 155. When they talk to a pile of what looks to be flesh, Toad makes their way to what we can assume is the final confrontation, and we know the Buggy-controlled Wario is in the direction Toad is moving in, but it makes you wonder why they were being guided the wrong way at first. To try and escape instead of facing Buggy? And god, that mix of Toad and Peach looks angry. And there might be more at play here. I guess we'll find out in the near future. So now that we've seen everything, that was one hell of a ride. We should piece it all together from start to finish, date of recording wise, so we can stitch together what we just witnessed. But before we do, there's a few extra pieces of information we can sleuth through to explain and contextualize a few things. Tape 4's upload on YouTube has a pinned comment by Greenlight that goes on to explain that on the day after Tape 4, which is June 17th, 2022, some sort of investigator journals their findings and thoughts on the Power Star project. It's unknown if they are an investigator, but I'll dub them that for now. Their belief is that the term game is a very loose way of describing the project as seen by their quote-unquote for that term. Buggy is malware, the 5 or so month gap between recordings is a sign of nothing unusual happening, which may or may not be true if there's lost footage floating around from that gap. And at this time on the timeline, there's rumors of mental digitalization, which is described as a disease, and Zachary Ross, age 20, was our victim in Tape 4. In that said tape, we see an attempted mental digitalization occur at the end of the footage. So did it happen in Tape 4 or did it happen in Tape 6? Tape 6's pinned comment by Greenlight has another log by the Investigator. It's a follow-up on Zachary's case. He did, in fact, not only record himself being digitized, but recorded at least one other video playing the game, totaling to 2 videos. This log was written on June 28, 2022, and that would mean that tapes 2, 4, 6, 9, and the finale 10 would be from the perspective of Zachary and his recordings. Probably? So, considering that the Investigator only references the events of 2 recordings, tape 2 and 4, that would mean that at this time of logging their findings, they had only seen 2 recordings out of the probably 5. They make note that the game in the 200 versions don't resemble the horrors of the 100 versions, which is something we've definitely seen. There's also note of the 4th wall breaking Luigi, which we can assume is still Andrew, even 5 months after his digitalization. We do get a sort of confirmation that the code Andrew gave Zachary was stopped due to cheats being turned off, which we don't see a pop-up about, but we can assume the cheat would have been the code. Buggy gets mad, tries to mentally digitize Zachary, and then what looks to be Peach steps in and gets him to consume a vessel. We do see the error screen and an attempt to digitize at the end of the tape 2, which, if Peach stopped the first attempt in tape 6, she doesn't stop this one. But is Zachary already digitized by this point? Again, we only get to see part of it in tape 4, so it could have failed, and then succeeded in tape 6. I think this is more likely because Zachary would have needed to access his screenshot folder to figure out what the code was, right? To do that, he needs to be physically alive and able to access those parts of his computer. If he's in the game, then it's safe to assume he can't do that. There's no way he could have memorized it without the image. Sure, he could have been digitized and Andrew could have told it to him again, but Buggy uses Mario to stare down whoever is playing the game in tape 6. It wouldn't do that unless the player, Zachary, was physically playing it and not trapped in the game. But the biggest bombshell in all of this is that the Investigator wants to meet Buggy and destroy it for what it did to everyone who fell victim to it, and their Andrew. Ho ho! Is the Investigator Andrew's partner? Maybe his betrothed? Either way, there's personal stake here now. So could everything we're seeing be recovered footage by this Investigator, the Power Star Project team, both? It doesn't really matter, but it does make you wonder. And that's all we get from these Investigator logs for now. If you're wondering why I chose to reveal all of this in this section of the video, it's definitely not because I was far into editing the video together and only realized these pinned comments existed now and didn't want to move anything around on the project timeline in the editing software. Definitely not. But I do think talking about it at this part of the video after we've seen everything is a nice way to tie a few loose ends. It all makes you wonder even more about who Peach really is. Is it just an AI? Could a bug or malware be infecting the AI? Is it someone digitized? Is Zachary the Eclipse user RIREEATR, the one we dubbed Eater? How will the Investigator get their hands on Buggy? Do they need to be digitized? Do they appear in the upcoming finale, and where? Are they the one guiding Zachary in the short teaser clip? Have they appeared in any recorded footage yet? Oh, it's such a nice and juicy story with questions we all want answers to. But for now, let's get to the timeline and piece everything together. So the timeline begins at, well, it's hard to say. See, it could start at the Congratulations Player number 122 tape, which is recorded at an unknown date. Player number 122 is congratulated for their efforts in playing through their build of the game, and then they're told to pass the torch onto someone else or risk having to play the game even more. That would then bring us to tape 8, January 17th, 2022, where we see number 122 go through the first case of mental digitization. This would bring up a lot of questions like, why did they return to the game after being told they were finished? Was it because they couldn't find anyone else to replace them, or were they just curious? Then how did Andrew get involved? But if you flip it around and put tape 8 at the front of the timeline, then it paints the picture that number 122 was digitalized and a congratulations was made for them, but obviously they couldn't get around to seeing it. And that would make sense since Andrew has to find the congratulations and find the newer version of the game in its description to play. But it still begs the question on how Andrew got himself involved in all of this. So either order works since we don't really have the answers for now. I'd say the latter, tape 8, and then the congratulations is more plausible, but it's still a bit up in the air. Next is tape 5, which happens on the same day as tape 8. This is the one where Andrew plays number 122's version of the game and Buggy recognizes that he isn't number 122. After that, Andrew is locked into playing version 123. Tape 1 is next, which was recorded a day after tape 5 on January 18th, 2022. The game opens up as the Power Star project, but as Andrew goes through the level as Wario, we witness everything change into the Wario Apparition corrupted data. It seems that Buggy set up this new version for Andrew, kind of like a creepypasta game. Remember, the 100 versions of the game have their horrors more out in the open, and the 200 versions are less like that, but the horrors are still there. Anyway, tape 3 follows right after on the same day where Andrew picks to play as Peach. Andrew goes through a fight with Wario, loses, fails to hide from the Wario Apparition, and that gives Peach's AI a revelation that she can withstand Buggy. She goes ballistic after that. Tape 7 happens a couple of days later on January 20th, 2022. Andrew is still our player, and while going through the game, he chooses to side with Buggy over Peach, and follows Toad's orders. Toad orders Andrew to lure Peach into a trap since Buggy can't touch her itself, all while Andrew gets digitized into the game. He succeeds at beating Peach, and as a reward, Buggy forces Andrew to play through boss fight after boss fight and then offers him a deal to live as the character Luigi and play that role. Now here's where things get tricky again. Tape 9, recorded on January 21st, 2022, can go here or the teaser tape can. If tape 9 is first, then the game's dev plays the game, sees how messed up Peach is, finds Andrew stuck in it, questions Buggy, and then gets digitalized. Buggy then monologues about how it hates its job, that it feels like a tool and it wants out, so I'm not surprised this happened. I'm not surprised either about it taking game assets, character AIs, etc. and leaving the dev to play a few levels and then jump off of a cliff where their digitalized selves exist no more. That part was pretty grim, and then after this, with Luigi and the other AIs in tow, Buggy reminds Andrew of his role and gives him a flashback of the events that led up to it. Or it's the other way around and Andrew is reminded of his role and then tape 9 happens. I think it's the former. I mean, it makes sense for tape 9 to have happened where Andrew clearly breaks character, and then when Buggy flees with everything, it calls upon Andrew and reminds him of their deal and his role. Around 5 months later, tapes 2, 4, and 6 happen in a whole new 200 version of the game that was made through Buggy's influence and Buggy's influence only. Probably. I don't think it would want to work with developers or any of the other AIs after everything it had gone through, so it would probably try to eliminate any possibility of that happening. Tape 2, June 16th, 2022 has the player, who we now know is Zachary thanks to the Investigator's Logs, helps Luigi try and find Mario, who we assume to be Andrew, talks to Zachary and asks for cooperation to fight against Buggy, but Buggy interrupts Andrew, calls him trash, and Zachary finishes the level. Tape 4, on the same day as Tape 2, shows us Zachary going through levels and interacting with Luigi, aka Andrew again. Andrew gets Zachary to take a photo with them using the F12 screenshot function and gives Zachary the next step in jolly cooperation, which is entering a code in the previous level. However, after that, he hints to Zachary to turn off the game and stop playing, but he continues and the fate of Andrew is up in the air. Zachary may have been digitized here too, but it seems that the process failed. The investigator then makes their log on June 17th, 2022. They go over what they know and their thoughts on the game, like Buggy being malware, the 5 or so month gap between recordings being a sign of nothing unusual happening, which may or may not be true, and there's rumors of mental digitalization, which is described as a disease, and we learn that Zachary Ross, age 20, was our player in tapes 2 and 4. In between tapes 4 and 6, on June 28th, 2022, we get more of the investigator's written log. It's a follow-up on Zachary's case. There's a confirmed 2 total pieces of footage that Zachary recorded, with tape 6 9, and the finale, 10, likely being his doing too. Considering that the investigator only references the events of 2 recordings, that's all they would have seen of Zachary at the time, since tape 6 was recorded 3 days after the investigator's log entry. There's also reference to the 4th wall breaking Luigi, which might still be Andrew even 5 months after his digitization. The investigator drops a bombshell and says that they want to meet Buggy and destroy it for what it did to everyone who fell victim to it and their Andrew. Who Andrew was to them is still unknown, but if he's still Luigi, then the investigator, who talks about Luigi, is making reference to him without even knowing. And with Andrew's fate up in the air, tape 6 is recorded around 2 weeks after tape 4 and 3 days after the investigator log on July 1st, 2022, which shows us who we can assume is Zachary entering the needed level to input the code, and they do just that. The footage recorded is around 4 versions ahead of tape 4's, so is this actually Zachary? Did he stick to playing the game instead of passing it on to someone else? That would mean that he didn't get mentally digitalized in tape 4, and that would paint a picture of him being so curious about the game that he wants to continue digging and find out more. After all, a character was talking to him through the 4th wall and gave him a code. A code for what exactly? Well, before he's able to finish the code and we're able to see what it does, Buggy tries to digitize him again, something, maybe Peach, stops that from happening, and Buggy uses Mario's body to hunt Zachary down. The code might be a backdoor to the dev menu or something that's present in multiple versions of the game. Zachary then finds Peach, who looks to have gone through hell and back. He consumes Peach and Buggy pulls him into a bogus error room and tricks him into not turning off the game to digitize him. And then we have the few snippets of the final tape we saw, which continues on from the end of tape 6. The digitized player, number 155, who we think to be Zachary, the one who fused with Peach's vessel, moves his way through the Buggy zone to confront Buggy. Well, there you go. The way the tapes are ordered gives us some insight into what's been happening at 2 major points in time, January 2022 and June and July of that same year. And going back and forth in time like this really gives us a whole bunch of important context as to what Buggy is, what it can do, and everything starts to make much more sense, and we can piece things together. We can't piece everything together yet, and some things are still up in the air, but we have a pretty good idea of what's going on now, and we can make some educated guesses and assumptions when needed. All of this brings us back to the source, Greenlight. How did they come about this footage and upload it? Well. If you haven't realized by now, this is a haunted video game style web series inspired by the Wario Apparition. I know I made it sound like it wasn't, but I think it adds a dramatic effect to what's being shown on screen until it comes time for, this part of the video. Although, did I even get anyone with that? Anyway, it all started here at a video Greenlight uploaded on July 2nd, 2023. This video, an unfinished Wario Apparition fan game from 2020, shows us the foundation Greenlight created. Made on SMBX, the Mario fan game engine I hinted to in tape 1's explanation, which would eventually be used for the Power Star archives. The game versions and what's in the description of each video make that pretty obvious, and it's really nice to see levels and assets so clearly and without all of the visual effects and whatnot over it. Those are obviously artistic decisions for the web series, and I think it does its job very well in creating the atmosphere and look of a found footage style haunted game. But like I said, we don't see that here, but we do see small snippets of horror here and there thanks to the personalization mechanic that would make each playthrough different. We also see a few snippets that were used as screenshots in the Congratulations Player Number 122 video. There's a little callback. In terms of gameplay and whatnot, Luigi can be picked in the cancelled game, and it plays out a scenario where Mario was defeated and Luigi takes over, which also gives you access to a secret level. Obviously, you can just play as Mario and have the more normal kind of experience, if you could even call it that, but back to the Luigi experience, Mario was sent to this secret level and he asks for Luigi's help. That sounds a lot like the 200 versions of the game where Mario is missing and Toad has to help Luigi find him, so I wonder if any of that will come into play eventually. We also see that Peach isn't a playable character normally, but can be set as one. This loads the player into an ominous and hazy level where the game asks the player if they like the level, and tells them that of course they do. It's said by Greenlight that this level can be interpreted as an anti-cheat measure of sorts, which is kind of mimicked by Peach's corrupted nature in the Power Star project. But in that case, Buggy acts as that anti-cheat measure. It was pretty funny to learn that Peach's design was inspired by Vinesource Vinny's SNES Corruptions video, which, yeah, I guess I can see that. I don't see a Peach anywhere, but I do see a lot of corruption. And man, I really like Vinny and Joel's videos and stream highlights. They make me laugh so much, and a lot of their videos are timeless classics. So it's really cool to see inspiration drawn from their unserious videos, and that be turned into something horrifying. Like I said during tape 9, I had some homies do some voice acting for this video too and play characters, which I'll have on screen again and linked in the description. Some of them have been in my videos before and they make YouTube videos too, so you may recognize them. I thought they all did a fantastic job. My reasoning for it was because I thought it would be cool to add some voice acting for certain parts so I didn't have to repeat or summarize too much of what most characters say after their dialogue. Obviously, there's still summarizing of dialogue done in the video, but there would have been much more, so I'd rather things just play out and then I talk about it. I also know that some people like to listen to my videos or have them play in the background, so I thought it would be a good idea for that too. So all in all, I thought it would add to my video in general, not in a way that shits on Greenlight's work, and I hope it doesn't come across as that. Although I didn't have anyone voice Buggy because it gives itself a voice and that's thematic to its character. I wanted to point this out to clear up any confusion because there isn't any voice acting in the Power Star archives, minus of course tape 9 and any computer generated voice lines used throughout the series. There's also a few other videos Greenlight has uploaded regarding the Power Star archives. There's a few fan-made SMBX game videos here and there, and teasers that aren't in the official Power Star archives video playlist, but we've seen the outcome of them anyway. There's also an original Power Star Archives first entry. I used the remake found in the official playlist when showing the first video, but I used the original in the intro of the video. I guess a remake was made to update it visually by making the visuals consistent with the rest of the other videos. Despite that, the original isn't anything to write off. But two big videos were released recently, and that's the teaser to the final video in the series I covered briefly, and a little show and tell regarding that and more. The teaser video looks to be a continuation from tape 6. We see Toad fused with Peach running around the buggy zone. You know how it goes. We saw that Peach guides the digitized player, who we find out is player number 155, to what looks like the final confrontation. The recent show and tell video confirms that episode 10 will be around, and get ready for this, an hour long. Holy moly, and only around 10 minutes have been made. Not only that, but a game based on the series is in the works. Yes! Yes! Watching a scary Mario creepypasta style game is one thing, but playing it? Especially after what we've seen, would be on a whole other level. So that cancelled Wario Apparition game may not be so cancelled anymore. There was also a showcase and explanation of a lot of other things that are heavy on spoilers for some of the other stuff that I'll get to in a second. But yeah, something huge is going to go down in the final installment, so get excited for all of that. Honestly, I think the whole series is great and I hope you do too. If you want to see more from it outside of the videos, Greenlight has a Twitter account that I'll have linked in the description that gives some behind the scenes glimpses at the series and the ideas behind it, which is pretty interesting. And then there's this whole spin-off series uploaded by Game Boy Guy 31 documenting the Power Star project's post-January 2022 build, which would probably slot somewhere between the 5-month gap we see between the 100 and 200 versions of the game. The footage from the spin-off looked to first be uploaded to that site referenced in the Power Star archives called Eclipse by a user called The Overmind, and then uploads were done by Game Boy Guy 31 or some there's a lot going on here and actually looks to give a whole lot more context and answers to what we've seen in the Power Star archives. Now that's something I definitely want to cover in a future video because I think it dabbles more into what Buggy got up to after leaving the Power Star Project network, which is confirmed to be a fan game project. And it looks like another AI is haunting this one too. My first speculation is that it's something Buggy created and it ties into the Power Star archives, but who knows? I guess you'll have to watch it all for yourself, linked in the description, or watch my video of it in the future if I decide to cover it. Speaking of the Power Star Archive series, I did think that the way things were released was a little confusing at first, but as the series progressed, it all made more and more sense and there was a very nice payoff to the questions established in the beginning, which I liked. At first, I thought that having a bit more time dedicated to ironing out Buggy's backstory, like its creation, interactions with the devs, inner thoughts, more on its motives, etc., could have gone a long way. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it would take away from the fear of the unknown. I also think it would have made more sense if the footage was stated to be recorded in, say, the 90s or early 2000s. You know, where the 4:3 ratio and older looking UI would have made more sense. Although using the 16:9 ratio for the footage in the later dates, and 4:3 for the earlier ones was a neat little tidbit. It does a little storytelling on what Buggy did to the Power Star project once it took the game assets, left the developer network, and made changes to the game like changing the aspect ratio to something more modern, amongst many other things. But in saying that, the big discussions and videos surrounding the Wario Apparition really came to be in 2020, so maybe that ties into the story somewhat with Buggy and or the developers of the Power Star project taking inspiration from it all. I also thought that the visuals in the levels, the VHS look or whatever you want to describe it as, and the distortions created by Buggy and Peach really add to the atmosphere being created. I felt pretty immersed and glued to my screen. Speaking of Buggy, at first all I could think about was Buggy from One Piece when its name was revealed, but the nickname for bug_AI suits it. I wonder if that name is a hint to the fact that its AI was a bug at first. A glitch perhaps? Probably, right? It all mixes together to create something akin to a creepypasta or haunted game, and I'm a sucker for those. Watching the boss fights and segments of the game that you don't usually see in a 2D Mario was pretty cool. While watching it, I was wishing for Nintendo to make an official Mario game with these kind of horror and boss fight elements, but leave it to fan-made projects to deliver something as cool as that. It works really well and kept me hooked for what came next, and so did the mysteries created in each tape. I also like the way mental digitalization was handled. It's not a unique plot point, but the way it builds upon the Wario Apparition is what I really like. Instead of doing it in a generic way, it's made to be unique to the Power Star archives and Mario to an extent. The rainbow visuals are reminiscent of a star power-up and something that could give players stroke-like symptoms like the Wario Apparition is rumored to give. Piecing things together over time is always fun with these kinds of videos, and I can't wait to see how it all concludes. I'll be there to watch it, and I hope you will too. And of course, I'll have the Power Star archives, the people who appeared in the video, and everything else talked about linked in the description if you want to check them all out. That's been the Power Star Archives Explained, and thank you all for watching. We went through the bulk of the series, what's being teased, and briefly looked at the spin-off and extra tidbits. I truly hope you enjoyed the video, so much so that you'll hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment about your thoughts on everything we've seen, and go give some love to Greenlight and his series. He's making one hell of a web series with lots of tie-ins to his work for people to watch. This video was a long time coming too, and my goodness did it take a while to make, but it was so worth it and I'm so happy with it, so I hope you stick around for more to come. I'll be sure to cover tape 10 in the future as well, and I'll look into the spin-off. But as always, ho ho ho! We can't forget the shoutouts to my lovely patrons and YouTube members, and a big shout out to the highest tier Patreon member, Joel Matthew Colgrove. Shoutouts to our highest tier YouTube members too, Cherry XP and Hammer Brother 13. Thank you all for your continued contributions, and thank you to everyone else too. You guys are absolute legends. Stay tuned for more videos like this, and I'll catch ya in the next one.